Hello, listeners. Welcome back to Voiceover Work and Audiobook Sampler. Where do you listen? Today is Monday, May 6th, 2024. In today's chapter-by-chapter preview of Peter Holland's book, The 80-20 Learner, among other topics, we'll cover the 85% rule and how it actually works together with the 80-20 rule, how to hone in on your current knowledge set, how to teach yourself with a minimalist mindset, and how to evaluate your learning processes to isolate the exact factors to keep or throw away. Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to check out Peter Holland's website at bit.ly/PeterHollins. Chapter 1. Living an 80-20 Life. In 1941, engineer and management consultant Joseph M. Girard became interested in the work of Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist and sociologist. Pareto had observed that around 80% of all land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the Italian population. It was Girard who took this observation and really ran with it, though, claiming that most things in life, not just property ownership, have this kind of unequal distribution. He claimed that 80% of any outcome or phenomenon is actually the result of just 20% of the causes. Girard applied this so-called Pareto principle to many different areas, including economics, mathematics, and industry. The principle has since been expanded even further to help describe and prescribe a certain mode of distribution in all matters of business, learning, and personal development. Later in his career, Girard himself would use this principle in many loose and ad hoc ways, describing his principle not so much as a law, but rather a description of a certain distribution, where the vital few and the useful many share unequally in a certain phenomenon. He eventually concluded that we could use this principle to our benefit. For example, we naturally become more efficient if we purposefully focus on the vital 20% instead of the much less vital 80%. Today, the Pareto principle, as it is applied in popular culture, is only distantly related to Pareto's original work, but has come nevertheless to represent an important truth about how we can strategically focus our attention for maximum results, no matter which area we're working in. Thus, it follows that, given unlimited resources, we should prioritize focusing on that 20% of our situation that will give us the most bang for our buck. Of course, the challenge then becomes identifying that 20%. The principle can be applied very concretely to specific issues or to more abstract, overarching concepts. However it's applied, the idea is that by making consistent small efforts in the vital 20%, one can achieve substantial success, whether your goal is mastery of an instrument or a language, personal development, or growing a business. The 80-20 principle is everywhere. Customer service may spend 80% of all their time managing just 20% of customer complaints. 80% of healthcare funds are spent on 20% of people in a population. 80% of a business sales come from 20% of its clients. 80% of people tend to use only 20% of a phone app's features. 20% of software bugs cause 80% of all errors. People wear 20% of their clothes 80% of the time. 20% of the exercises we do have 80% of the impact on our health. Analyzing and solving just 20% of emerging issues will remove 80% of your problems. 20% of our relationships satisfy 80% of our social needs. To be healthy, we need only eat well 80% of the time. We can cheat 20% of the time. The focus of this book is to find out exactly how we can use this principle when it comes to learning, improving skills, absorbing new information. Chapter 2. Keep things lean. Sometimes people think of their brains like blank slates so that whenever they want to learn something new, they're starting from scratch. They may feel like they know nothing and are starting as absolute beginners, so they consult all the right masters and experts and diligently follow the path they outline. There's nothing wrong with this approach. However, it fails to take advantage of something that is frequently underestimated, the value of your own prior learning. In this chapter, we'll be looking at an underappreciated way of looking at the learning process, which focuses on what you already know and how to leverage it. In a way, it's a clever application of the 80-20 rule. With any new concept or skill, try to identify the 20% that is genuinely new and unfamiliar to you, and deliberately leverage the 80% that you probably already know something about. Being a minimalist learner is therefore about building on whatever existing foundations you have, and there's more there than you think. What you already know is the key. Think about all the things you've already learned in life, starting from the day you were born. It's a lot. Your brain is bursting with this gathered and synthesized knowledge. In fact, cross-referencing every new piece of data it encounters against this vast library of pre-existing information is exactly how it learns in the first place. For example, as a child, you learn that the furry brown creature that barks is called a dog. Later, you encounter another furry creature that barks, but this one is white. When you're informed that this one is also a dog, you update your internal mental schemas to reflect the fact that different members of the class dog can come in different colors. Perhaps you start to imagine how many other colors dogs can be, and whether this general rule can be extrapolated to other animal classes too. You do not need to understand formal logic to make this leap. You don't need to start from scratch either, running through a complicated diagnostic to figure out what animal you're looking at. Learning that some dogs are white is not something you're ever taught, but something you infer purely from what you already know. Whenever you encounter something a little different, e.g., the new idea of being white in color, this constitutes the crucial 20% that needs to be integrated somehow into the already existing 80% framework of the category dog. It makes sense, then, that your learning process should capitalize on this ancient and pre-existing learning software that you already come installed with. Here's where the 80-20 rule comes in. Your brain typically processes things it already understands very quickly and with minimal effort. For example, every time you encounter a new dog, your brain is not processing every single bit of information you take in. It's only learning a few extra bits that make this dog different from your general working model of a dog. When something different happens in your world, and your brain encounters something novel and memorable, you immediately focus your attention more fully on it. Chapter 3, Learning to Learn. Whatever you're learning, mindset matters, and so does your overall learning philosophy and strategy. That's because the techniques and approaches you use stem directly from this mindset. In this chapter, we'll be taking a closer look at what actually takes place when we learn day after day, and which handful of techniques and approaches works best across the board. The 5-hour rule. First, the one resource that is more important than all the others because we can never create more of it? Time. What makes a day? We all have 24 hours, no matter who we are. Biologically, most of us do best at around 6 to 9 hours of sleep a day, leaving nice wide margins. And if we work full-time in a conventional job, may spend a further 8 to 10 hours at our day jobs. That leaves around 7 or 8 hours for other things, like exercising, socializing, housework, life admin, childcare, relaxation, hobbies, eating, grooming, and learning something new. While that 7 or 8 hours might seem like a lot, most of us have had the experience of getting to the end of the day and genuinely feeling that we had no time to do all those things we wanted to do. The culprit is obvious. You watched TV. You scrolled through your phone. You watched TV again. You checked your email. You pottered around the house. You looked at your phone again. The majority of people have a few hours of free time each day, every day, but many of them waste that time on tasks that achieve precisely nothing. In fact, most of these tasks barely even count as relaxation. When last did an hour on your phone or in front of a TV make you feel refreshed and rejuvenated? We can find some good advice hidden in the 80-20 rule again. Take a good look at your daily schedule and identify that useless 80% that is not moving you toward what you truly value. You may discover that when you are focused, disciplined, and willing to cut away at the nonsense of life, there's plenty of time available to work toward your dreams. Enter the 5-hour rule, which suggests spending 1 hour per day on learning, reflection, and deep thinking. At the end of a 5-day week, you will have accrued 5 solid hours of quality time. There's that magic 20%. In a year, you will have spent more than 1,000 hours on high-value tasks. Bearing in mind that a 4-year degree can take around 4,000 to 6,000 hours of classroom time, this is nothing to sniff at, especially when you consider the other hidden benefit of all the time you're not spending on harmful activities. Wouldn't you rather have accumulated 1,000 high-value hours than 1,000 hours on being a couch potato? This rule is inspired by Benjamin Franklin, who was said to have dedicated at least an hour each day to learning something new. Franklin prioritized reading and writing, and even formed a club of like-minded individuals. Today, successful figures such as Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, and... Chapter 4. The 80-20 rule can solve problems. The 80-20 rule can help you identify what goals are most important, what tasks are most likely to get you there, and what mindset you need to adopt if you hope to do those tasks to the very best of your ability. The rule really is everywhere and will constantly remind you to keep things lean, don't get distracted by trivial details, and regularly check in with the core of what you're trying to learn and why you're trying to learn it. You already know you need to have rock-solid goals and a learning philosophy that's all your own. Once those are in place, you can then reframe any snags and obstacles in your journey as opportunities to check up on your strategy overall. The 80-20 principle can help us find useful answers to the question, is what we're doing working? The Pareto principle can help you decide. The rule suggests that roughly 80% of our outcomes will come from 20% of our efforts, which means if we want to be more effective, we need to identify the techniques and exercises that are bringing the greatest results and focus on those. How to evaluate your learning experiences. When you've completed a learning task, a course, or some other project, your initial reaction might be relief. Phew, you're done. Time for a break. But you're not done yet. The learning process continues, even after you've reached your deadlines, written your exams, or met your goal. You need to evaluate the process itself. This allows you to learn how to learn. If I ask you, how was your learning process? How would you answer? If you ask a school kid what they think of fifth grade or of math class, they may give answers like, "I hate my teacher. The book is so boring. I don't see why we have to learn geometry at all. I got a B on the quiz." But each of these answers is only really addressing a very small part of the learning process. They may tell you a little about the practical way the material was delivered, but they don't say much about how well it's been absorbed, or why, or how. Similarly, if you complete an online course and the only reaction you have to it is that you didn't like the platform or the tutor's voice, you've missed out on an opportunity to gain real insight into your learning process. By observing and reflecting on your learning experiences, you can refine your study strategies and allocate your time and effort more efficiently. But doing this requires more than simply saying, "I liked it" or "I passed." Evaluating your learning requires more discernment and self-awareness so you can optimize your learning process, focus on the most productive techniques, and, ultimately, achieve better results in your learning journey. To do this, try the Kirkpatrick model, which was developed by Donald Kirkpatrick in 1954 and has ever since been a popular method for evaluating the effectiveness of training programs, e-learning courses, and other educational initiatives. In fact, the creator of the model later became a professor at the University of Wisconsin and the president of the American Society for Training and Development. That's it for this week's episode of Voiceover Work, an audiobook sampler. Once again, check out the author's website at bit.ly/Peter Hollins, where you can find out more information and sign up for his mailing list. And join us next week on Monday as we have the audiobook preview of a new title. Hope you have a great weekend and a great week. Thanks for joining us today.